The rain had just begun to fall when Emily stood at the corner cafe, staring through the glass window at the scene she wished she could unsee. Inside, her boyfriend of 5 years, Daniel, sat at a table with another woman. Their hands were locked together, laughter spilling between them in a way that felt intimate, too intimate for strangers. Emily's chest tightened, and though she tried to convince herself it might be innocent, the unmistakable kiss that followed confirmed the betrayal she feared most. She didn't confront him that night. She walked away in silence, her umbrella trembling in her hand as if it carried the weight of her anger. But inside, something hardened. Emily had always been the forgiving one, the one who let little mistakes slide, the one who believed in second chances. But not this time. This wasn't just cheating, it was humiliation. Daniel hadn't even tried to hide it. Friends had whispered that he was different lately, colder, distant. And now she knew why. For days, Emily kept up the act of being the clueless girlfriend. She smiled when Daniel came home late, pretended not to notice the faint perfume on his jacket. She cooked his favorite meals, asked about his day, listened to his excuses about work stress. Every smile she gave was rehearsed, every nod calculated. Beneath her calm exterior, a storm was building, a storm Daniel would never see coming. Emily began her revenge quietly. She gathered proof, photos, texts, screenshots of conversations he thought she'd never find. She became meticulous, storing everything in a hidden folder on her laptop. Every night after Daniel fell asleep, she sat in the dark, documenting his betrayal like a detective preparing a case. But revenge, she decided, wouldn't just be about exposing him. No, it had to be something he'd never forget, something that would remind him every day that he chose the wrong woman to betray. She started with kindness. Daniel's birthday was approaching, and Emily threw him a surprise party. She invited all of his closest friends, his family, even his coworkers. Daniel beamed as he walked into the room, pretending to be the charming, faithful man everyone believed he was. Emily played her role to perfection, standing at his side, kissing his cheek, whispering sweet words. But she knew the real performance was yet to come. When it was time to cut the cake, Emily tapped her glass, silencing the room. "Before we celebrate," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes, "I have a little video I want to share. It's a collection of memories from the past year. A gift for Daniel." The lights dimmed, and the projector flickered on. At first, the screen filled with sweet images, photos of their trips together, dinners, candid laughter. Everyone in the room smiled warmly. Then the tone shifted. The next slide showed a picture of Daniel holding hands with the other woman at that same cafe. Gasps filled the room. The following clips were screenshots of late-night texts, words of passion and promises he had made to someone who wasn't Emily. Friends exchanged shocked glances. His mother covered her mouth in disbelief. The final image was of Daniel and the woman in a hotel lobby, arms wrapped tightly around each other, date stamped only a week ago. The silence that followed was deafening. Daniel's face drained of color, his hands trembling as the truth of his double life stood exposed before everyone who had ever trusted him. Emily stood beside him, her smile calm and steady. "Happy birthday, Daniel," she whispered, her voice cutting through the tension like glass. The party ended in chaos. Guests left in whispers, his family refusing to look him in the eye. Daniel tried to stammer excuses, but no one listened. Emily didn't stay to hear them either. She walked out the door with her head held high, leaving him in the wreckage of his own lies. In the days that followed, word spread quickly. Friends who once respected him avoided his calls. His colleagues looked at him differently at work. The other woman disappeared from his life once she realized what kind of man he truly was. Daniel was left alone, his reputation shattered, his pride stripped bare. And Emily? She was free. For the first time in years, Emily felt powerful. Not because she destroyed him, but because she refused to let his betrayal define her. She didn't cry anymore. She didn't question her worth. She knew she had given him everything, and he had thrown it away. The world had seen the truth, and justice, in its own way, had been served. Those who witnessed it still talk about that night, The night Emily turned humiliation into strength, the night she showed everyone what true revenge looked like. Her story spread beyond her circle of friends, a whispered tale of a woman who refused to be broken. And Daniel? He would never forget the birthday where his carefully built facade crumbled in front of everyone he knew. Emily moved on, carrying her head high, not with bitterness, but with a quiet satisfaction that sometimes the sweetest revenge is simply revealing the truth for everyone to see. And in doing so, she shook everyone, because no one expected her to fight back with such elegance, precision, and fire. The night after the party, Daniel called her again and again. His messages piled up, pleas, apologies, pathetic explanations about how it meant nothing and how he made a mistake. Emily read them in silence, her lips curling into a bitter smile. For years she had begged him to make time for her, to listen to her, to love her the way she deserved. Now, suddenly, he wanted to act like she mattered. It was too late. Still, Emily didn't block his number. Not yet. She wanted him to squirm. She let his words flood her phone, each one more desperate than the last. But she never responded. He had humiliated her in the cruelest way, pretending to love her while whispering the same words to another woman. Now she would let silence be her final weapon. Silence, after all, was louder than any curse. Weeks passed, and Daniel's life began to unravel. At work, his charm could no longer mask the shame people felt when they looked at him. Colleagues whispered behind his back, calling him a liar, a cheater, a fraud. His boss, once fond of him, pulled him aside and told him that his personal scandals were damaging the company's image. Soon after, Daniel lost the promotion he had been chasing for months, a promotion Emily had once supported him in working toward. But Emily's revenge wasn't just the video. She had more in motion. She had quietly built a friendship with the woman Daniel had cheated with. Not out of pity, but strategy. The woman, it turned out, didn't know Daniel had been in a long-term relationship. When Emily revealed the truth, the woman's anger flared hotter than Emily expected. She, too, felt humiliated. And together, they decided that Daniel didn't deserve the luxury of slipping away unscathed. Emily shared with her the stories of Daniel's arrogance, the way he belittled her dreams, dismissed her ambitions, made her feel small. The woman, in turn, shared the lies he told her, the false promises, the manipulations, the fantasy of a future together. Piece by piece, they unraveled the man who had deceived them both. Soon, Daniel's carefully curated image as the charming, dependable man collapsed completely. Friends he had grown up with deleted his number. His parents, furious at the disgrace he brought upon their family, kept their distance. He wasn't just a man who cheated, he was a man who had been exposed by the very woman he thought was too soft, too weak to fight back. Meanwhile, Emily thrived. She poured her energy into her career, working late, taking risks she had once been afraid of. She bought new clothes, cut her hair, and when people saw her, they noticed a glow, a fire in her that hadn't been there before. It wasn't revenge anymore, it was rebirth. The story of her bold act spread quietly among colleagues, friends, even strangers. She became a symbol of strength, of what it meant to take back control when someone tried to shatter you. And Daniel? He lingered in the ruins. Some nights, Emily knew, he probably replayed that video in his head, the gasps of the crowd, the shame of watching his own betrayal exposed like a crime in front of everyone he loved. That humiliation would never fade. He had thought Emily was fragile, too kind, too forgiving to ever fight back. But he had underestimated her. Months later, Emily ran into him on the street by accident. He looked smaller somehow, tired, unshaven, weighed down by the burden of his own mistakes. He froze when he saw her, his eyes filled with a mixture of regret and longing. For a moment, he opened his mouth to speak, but Emily only smiled faintly and walked past him without a word. That silence, once again, said everything. Her revenge had shaken everyone who witnessed it. Not because it was cruel or violent, but because it was precise, elegant, and unforgettable. Emily hadn't destroyed herself in the process. She had risen higher. Daniel had lost her, lost his pride, lost his mask of charm. She, on the other hand, had gained freedom, strength, and the respect of everyone who had once doubted her. And that, perhaps, was the truest revenge of all. Emily had once believed Daniel was her forever. They met in college, when he was ambitious and charming, and she was full of dreams and innocence. He made her laugh, told her she was the most important person in his world, and for a long time, she believed him. Through every hardship, every late night, every celebration, she was there. She sacrificed, bent, and compromised, because that's what love meant to her. But as the years passed, Daniel changed. He became colder, less attentive, more wrapped up in himself. Emily noticed it, but she convinced herself it was stress, that all relationships went through rough patches. She loved him enough to believe things would get better. Until the night she saw him at the cafe. That single moment split her life into two halves, before she knew the truth, and after. Watching him kiss another woman shattered something deep inside her. But instead of collapsing, she stood taller. Instead of screaming, she went quiet. That silence was dangerous. It meant she was planning. At first, Daniel had no idea. Emily played the perfect girlfriend. She laughed at his jokes, asked about his day, cooked his favorite meals. But behind the mask, her heart was cold, her mind sharp. Every late-night text he sent while sitting beside her, she captured. Every lie he told about working late, she traced. She wasn't just his girlfriend anymore. She was the hunter, and he was her prey. Her revenge needed patience. She wanted to cut deep, not with rage, but with precision. So she waited. The birthday party was just the beginning. That night would go down in history among their friends and families. When the screen lit up with his betrayal, people gasped, cried, whispered. Some walked out in disgust. Daniel tried to reach for her, to whisper apologies, but she stepped back. She didn't scream, didn't cry. She simply left him there, surrounded by the ashes of his own lies. But Emily wasn't finished. After the party, she made sure everyone knew the truth. Not by gossip, not by rumors, but by facts. The pictures, the texts, the receipts. She sent them quietly to the people who mattered most in his life. His family, his boss, his closest friends. No words, just the evidence. Let them draw their own conclusions. And they did. Daniel's reputation collapsed. At work, the whispers became louder. His team no longer respected him. The promotion he had bragged about slipped through his fingers when management cited his lack of integrity. Friends he had grown up with stopped answering his calls. Even his family avoided him, embarrassed by the scandal. The other woman, too, left him. She was furious when she learned the truth, that she had been nothing more than a side story to a man who promised her the world. When Emily spoke to her, it wasn't with anger, but calm understanding. "You're not the enemy," she said softly. "He lied to both of us." That alliance stung Daniel more than anything. The two women he had tried to play against each other now stood united in contempt for him. Months passed. Emily's life blossomed. She poured her energy into her work, finally starting the business she had always dreamed of, but which Daniel had once dismissed as too risky. She traveled, met new people, and discovered a confidence she never knew she had. The story of her revenge spread quietly through their social circles. People admired her, respected her, even envied her for the way she handled betrayal with elegance instead of chaos. Daniel, meanwhile, sank deeper. He drank more, showed up late to work, looked thinner and weaker every time someone saw him. He tried reaching out to Emily, leaving long, rambling voicemails about how he missed her, how he regretted everything. She never answered. His humiliation became his shadow, following him everywhere. The final blow came when Emily ran into him months later at a mutual friends gathering. He looked exhausted, his once proud eyes dimmed. He tried to speak to her, his voice breaking. "Emily, can we talk? Please. Just 5 minutes." She looked at him steadily, her silence heavy. Then, with a small smile that held no warmth, she simply said, "You already said enough." And she turned away, leaving him standing there, alone in a room full of people who no longer respected him. That was the moment Daniel realized the full weight of what he had lost. Not just Emily, but his pride, his reputation, his mask of charm. She hadn't screamed, hadn't begged, hadn't fought for him. She had simply exposed the truth, and the truth had destroyed him. Emily, on the other hand, became more radiant than ever. She wasn't defined by her pain anymore, but by her strength. Her revenge wasn't about destroying him, it was about reclaiming herself, her dignity, her life. And, because she carried it out with such calm precision, it shook everyone who witnessed it. People still whispered about her story. Some said it was ruthless. Others said it was justice. But everyone agreed on one thing. No one had ever seen a revenge quite like hers. And Daniel? For the rest of his life, he would remember the night of his birthday party. The night his lies collapsed. The night Emily showed everyone the power of a woman who had been cheated on and humiliated, and who chose to rise instead of break.